Hey everybody, it's GombletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be playing my first Dominaria United Sealed Event on Magic Arena. I have done pre-release weekend, that's why there was not a video yesterday. I was just jamming pre-releases, so I've done a little bit of Sealed, and hopefully that'll be enough experience to make a pretty solid deck this time around. So without further ado, let's take a peek at our 6 rares in this sealed pool. We've got the Phasing of Zhalfir, which has been pretty unimpressive to me. It's basically going to destroy all creatures, turn them into 2/2 Phyrexians instead. The fact that you're leaving a bunch of 2/2s behind with this means it's not permanently getting rid of every threat on the board. The best scenario for this is where you have a wider board state than your opponent. Say you have a ton of 1/1s and they have a couple 5/5s, then theoretically turning everything into 2/2s is going to be pretty solid, but you just can't rely on your opponent being a deck that isn't some kind of white token deck where this is really bad. So not a card that I really like to main deck or play around with, but maybe once in a blue moon I'd try sideboarding this in against some deck with nothing but really big creatures. This does have the flexibility of being able to save 2 of your biggest creatures from dying to the phasing, which is a little interesting, but again, pretty narrow in my opinion, not the greatest in most situations. We have Braid's Arisen Nightmare, which is one of the stronger cards in our sealed pool, a 3-mana 3/3 Nightmare. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it, and if they don't, they're going to lose 2 life and you're going to draw a card. So this is quite solid, particularly in black-white. Again, white is just so good at producing tokens in this format that you could get a bunch of creature tokens and start sacrificing them for good value, either trading up into opposing creatures or drawing you cards. So Braid's very, very nice, super solid build around. We've got Squee, Dubious Monarch, who actually works quite well with the Braids. Squee is a very aggressive red card that can spit out a 1/1 goblin every time it attacks, and it's just a 3-mana 2/2 haste that can keep coming back from the grave by escaping for 4 mana and exiling 4 other cards from your graveyard. So Squee's just a great red aggro card, a very resilient card. Very nice. Urborg Lurgoyf, probably the second weakest card we've looked at so far. Definitely a little better than Phasing of Zhalfir in my opinion, but it is quite slow. 2 mana for a creature that has power equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard and toughness equal to that +1. So it'll be quite big later in the game, but early game it's not going to do much. Theoretically, if you're in blue and black, you can use it to mill yourself. So if you have other graveyard synergies, this card goes up a lot in value. But if you have no graveyard synergies and you're just kicking it to try to make it somewhat big, it's still not going to be that great, even in a deck with blue and black, because theoretically you're playing this, turn 4 to double kick it, and you're milling yourself 6 on turn 4 if you're double kicking it. So, mill 6 in a deck with 15 to 17 creatures. This will probably be like a 4-mana 3/4 at that rate. It does scale as the game progresses, which is nice, but again, it's very unlikely for this to be super, super good. Llanowar Green Widow, on the other hand, is just guaranteed a great deal. A 3-mana 4/3 reach and trample with no other text would already be a very solid card. That would be on rate with like a great uncommon, but this also has the ability to return from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. You do that for 8 mana. However, if you have a bunch of basic land types among lands you control, that ability is going to cost 1 less to activate for each basic land type among lands you control. It's got a very nice domain discount. This is guaranteed to be reduced by at least 2 in almost any deck, meaning instead of 8 mana, it's only going to cost 6. And if you get to do a domain deck, it'll likely get reduced by 4 or even 5, making it only 4 mana or 3 mana to bring it back from your graveyard to the board. You can only bring it back 1 time, but that's still 2 4/3s with reach and trample over time off of just 1 card. So Green Widow, in my opinion, probably the strongest rare we have so far. It's very close. Squee and Braids are pretty good too. And then our last rare, another very narrow one that's not gonna see any play in Sealed, unfortunately. A 2-mana 2/3 that can tap to put 2 Ingenuity counters on herself, and then you can play an artifact from your hand with mana value less than or equal to the number of ingenuity counters on her. There's just not enough artifacts in this format for her to do anything in limited, but a cool card for Historic Brawl, Commander, and constructed formats. So some dud rares here, Phasing of Zalfir, Joyra, and then I'm not very excited by Urborg Lurgoyf, but Squee, Braids, and Llanowar Green Widow are very nice to keep in mind as we look at the whole sealed pool, as we look at the bigger picture here. So we're going to look through every color now, see what colors seem the strongest, and see what we want to go with. But what I always like to do first, right before that, in sealed, is check out my multicolored and my colorless to see where my best mana fixing lies, and see the kind of cards that I'm going to put into any deck. And the gold uncommons are usually pretty big signposts of good strategies to build around as well. So for colorless, we don't have anything we're really going to run. Vanquisher's Axe is just not where it's at. Equipment are generally not the greatest thing ever because they just do nothing when you run out of creatures, and not adding any toughness also makes it so your creature's not like trading up super often. I do like Automatic Librarian. I think this card is fine if you need a filler creature. A 3-mana 3/2 is not ideal because it will trade down into 2-mana 2/2s, but it has a good enter the battlefield effect, being able to scry 2, set up your draws, help dig to whatever color of mana you're looking for. So that's pretty fine. When we look at our dual lands, we've got quite a few. We have 2 green-white duels, 2 red-white duels, and 3 blue-white duels. So that is very nice to keep in mind. We've got great mana fixing if we go red-white-green or green-white-blue, or all 4 colors theoretically. So we'll keep that in mind. That is a pretty solid reason to head in those directions. In my opinion, just having good mana, good consistent mana, so you know you can cast all your spells, is pretty important, it's pretty valuable. So you've got Garna. If we have got a lot of good black-red cards, this is going to be fine. A 4/3 that's going to let us draw cards as attacking creatures die and deal damage to our opponents otherwise. Najjal's a little less exciting. You need some real good instants and sorceries for this deck to be, or for this card to be super spicy. Otherwise it's going to trade off pretty easy. I guess Garna trades off pretty easy as well, but at least Garna's more likely to get immediate value. I don't know. Ninjal's a little more expensive, a little slower. We've already talked about Joyra. Aeron is an absolute house. This card is nuts in the token strategy, where you just get a bunch of creatures down and then you just start making them bigger every single turn by sacrificing one of them. So that's a pretty huge one. So yeah, we'll keep in mind of Aaron primarily. These other 2 are just fine, but I'll consider Aaron as we look over the colors as a reason to try to be in white-black. Now we'll look at our individual colors. Taking a look at whites, we have some pretty solid stuff going on in this color. First of all, we've got a great removal spell, Citizen's Arrest. This is a removal spell that can get rid of any creature or planeswalker as long as it remains on the battlefield, which is pretty dang good. There are some main deckable ways to blow up enchantments like Broken Wings and Destroy Evil, but they don't come up that often to make this card unplayable or anything. It's still pretty great. So that's our best non-creature spell. Heroic Charge is fine if we have a ton of creatures. Take Up the Shield's a pretty solid trick. Giving Indestructible and Lifelink can really turn a game around. You also keep the +1/+1 counter forever, so we definitely play Citizen's Arrest and Take Up the Shield in any white deck we end up playing. Herbalist is filler. Faithbonder is also filler, but our other 3 2-drop white cards are incredible. 2 Knight of Dawn's Light, a 2/2 first strike that can also pump itself up for 2 mana so that it can attack in incredibly well, because you can always just threaten to pump this up and then you're just going to kill your opponent's blocker without losing a creature, which is pretty brutal. There's also Phyrexian Missionary here, which is an incredible card. This card is so busted because a 2 mana 2/3 lifelink is already like uncommon level, just a ridiculous deal for only 2 mana. It's going to beat almost any other 2-drop. And then it also has a kicker if you're playing white-black, where on turn 4, you just get a way better version of Gravedigger, a 4 mana 2/3 that returns a creature from your graveyard to your hand. So really liking the white here. 2 Knight of Dawn's Light, a Phyrexian Missionary, a Citizen's Arrest, Take Out the Shield. Those are all really exciting. Charismatic Vanguard is solid filler. Shalai's Acolyte is good if we end up in white and green. And then our Givian Phalanxes are pretty good if we end up in a creature-heavy strategy. So white does look pretty good here. Take a look at blue now. Blue only has a couple things going for it here. We have 2 Talus Lookouts, some of my favorite blue commons in the format. Just a nice solid flyer that gives you value even when it dies. Soaring Drake is a fine flyer, and Battlewing Mystic is also a fine flyer. So we've got good evasive threats in blue between the Lookout, the Drakes, the Battlewing Mystic, even the Haunting Figment, potentially unblockable now and then. When you look at our non-creature stuff, it's very unexciting. I am not going to play Phasing of Zhalfir. Probably not going to play Negate, but it might be playable. I'll definitely play Essence Scatter. Then I'll definitely play Combat Research. If we slap this on like a Flyer or a Haunting Figment, that could end up being pretty good. Yeah, we could try that out. But yeah, just not a lot of blue cards. Not any particularly exciting ones. I'm not a huge fan of Academy Wall unless you have the Defender Tribal stuff going on. So blue is just looking fine. We're definitely not playing Pixie Illusionist unless we're a heavy domain deck or we are blue-green. So a little less going on in blue for sure, but it's not horrible. We've got some of the best commons. We've got an Essence Scatter. We've got a good Flyers theme going on there. Taking a look at black here, the best thing we have going on is Braid's Arisen Nightmare. Don't have a lot of token production in this sealed pool though. Even in our white, we don't really have any tokens, so Braids isn't going to be that nasty here. Still going to be good. We're definitely going to run her if we go black. Most of these other cards are pretty slow and unwieldy. Tattered Apparition super slow. Sengir Connoisseur also pretty slow. 5 mana for a 3/3 flyer. Yes, it gets bigger as creatures are dying, but only once per turn, so by the time it gets big enough, probably like 2 turns after you've played it, to where it becomes something that's like pretty solid sized for its mana cost, and at that point your opponents just had time to draw into removal or deal with it in some way. I do like the Monstrous Warleech. It's especially good with the black and blue cost reduction commons that get cheaper for each instant sorcery in your graveyard or each creature in your graveyard, but we didn't open up either of those in the sealed pool, so we don't have any great combos with the Warleech, but it's still a fun card if we go black-blue. We'll try it out. Warhorse is also fine. When we look at our interaction, we have 1 Tribute to Urborg, double Bone Splinters. Seems pretty solid, but again, we don't have a lot of expendable stuff for Bone Splinters. Black looks a little awkward here. I do generally like these cards, but it's because of some of the synergies you can do with them. It really feels like we just don't have the right synergies to use these cards well. I guess we have a Phyrexian Warhorse for creature production, for token production, but very little token production in this sealed pool, so I feel like our black falls behind a bit because of that. Bone Splinters and Braids both get significantly worse, and the whole plan of maybe trying to play Aaron really falls apart without ways to get a lot of creatures out really fast. Aaron's still a 3 mana 3/3 menace, but we're really not going to be able to use that ability incredibly well in this sealed pool. Moving on to red now. Not a ton of creatures here. We have some really solid non-creature spells, it looks like. We've obviously got Squee being the best card in red. We have Hurloon Battle Hymn, which is great. 3 mana for 4 to a creature planeswalker, and if we're in white, we also get to gain 4 life. Fires of Victory, another really good one if we can splash the kicker cost. It's just okay if we can't. Flowstone Infusion, another good removal spell in red. Great efficient removal at instant speed in red. We also have, if we're low on removal in our other colors, the 5 mana sorcery speed removal. So I really like red's non-creature stuff here. Very good stuff to have for interaction. But when it comes to the creatures, the amplifiers are great if we're in red-blue specifically. Branch Rider's fine if we're in red-green. And then there's like Warbrute, which is pretty good, Cyclops, which is good, but just kind of a low creature count in red. Pretty solid Squee though. Really like the interaction in red as the best thing going on for it, which means red should be a pretty solid splash color potentially, because your removal spells are cards you can wait a little bit to have. It's okay if we don't hit a red source by turn 3, but we have a 3 mana red removal spell in hand, because that removal spell is still going to be super useful later in the game. But if we don't hit red by turn 3 for our, let's say, a 3 mana 3/3 or something, and that card is going to fall off significantly in power level later in the game. So I like red for a potential splash here. Final color, let's look at our green. Well, I don't know for sure, but it looks like green has the most cards out of any color, and it's got some very good ones. We've seen our pretty solid dual lands in this sealed pool to go with our Yavimaya Sojourner to make this potentially pretty cheap. Got a couple Elfheim Worms at 5 as some big finishers. Barkweave Crushers are fine. Llanowar Green Widow, one of the best cards in this sealed pool. Great rare. We'd love to play it. And with all those domain lands again, we can get the recast for pretty cheap. Hexbane Tortoise is pretty filler. And then Bog Badge, pretty filler as well. Actually, probably a bigger fan of the Badger than the Tortoise, weirdly enough. I just really like the 3 toughness on Badger so that I can attack into 2/2s and 2/3s and stuff without just trading off like the Tortoise does. I don't think Ward 2 is incredibly useful on your 2 toughness creature, because the most likely way this thing is going to die is just during combat against a 2/2 or against 2 1/1 tokens from the white deck. Don't think this is really getting targeted all that often, so... Urborg Lurgoyf, again, fine if we're in blue and black. I almost definitely wouldn't run it if we're just in green. Snare Spinner's pretty solid out of the sideboard. I actually enjoyed this card enough to run like 1 main deck if we're low on creatures, because it is good against 1/1 tokens, and it's also good against 2/1 flyers, 2/2 flyers, that kind of stuff, and there's a decent bit of those. You know, blue has the 3 mana 2/3 flyer, this is good against that. White has the 3 mana 2/1 flyer at common, this is good against that. Snare Spinner's been pretty fine. Bite Down's pretty great interaction. We've got some solid combat tricks between Colossal Growth and Gaia's Might. We also have the really nice combat trick that also buffs your entire board, Strength of the Coalition, if we go green and white. So I do think our most exciting colors, now that I've looked at them all, were green and white. So I think we're going to do something with green and white as the core, but with our mana fixing. Could potentially splash a bit of blue or a bit of red, or maybe even a bit of both. We've got 3 blue-white duels, 2 red-white duels, and 2 green-white duels. So let's take a look at green-white as the core. Blue didn't look super spicy when it comes to splashing. Blue was kind of just like, if we go for a blue flyers deck, we'll have some good stuff, but looking at these cards individually, nothing super splashable here. Yeah, I think I'm going to try to do red as the potential splash. So let's go green-white. Then, did I have any multicolored cards in this color pair? We did not. Not at all. Okay, so we're definitely going Radiant Grove. And then even if we don't splash in red, we'll actually just play these instead of basic planes to up our domain count for Yavimaya Sojourner, Llanowar Green Widow, Gaia's Might, anything with domain we keep in the deck. And then for red, probably splashing in Squee. Definitely splashing in the removal, the Battle Hymn, Fires of Victory. Ooh, and we've got triple just random blue sources to maybe kick a Fires of Victory, which could be pretty good. But yeah, I think we'd splash in Fires of Victory, Hurloon, Battle Hymn, maybe Fire Nado, or Flowstone Infusion. So let's slap those in. Sure, we'll put Squee in for now. Although Squee is kind of similar to how I was saying earlier, where removal's pretty good to splash because it doesn't really drop off in power level later in the game. Squee would. Squee's a lot better on turn 3 than Squee's going to be on turn 6, turn 7 if we can't hit that red source, but maybe our mana's good enough we can get like 5-6 red sources in here. Okay, so if we put every single green, white, and red card in this deck, then we have 54 cards. We get to cut 14 of them. One thing I do want to slap in here as well, if I am doing the deck building plan of putting everything in the deck and cutting down, is the Automatic Librarian, because I think that is playable, but it's probably going to get cut in here. I think we're going to have more than enough valuable creatures, but just in the interest of putting absolutely everything that is playable in these 3 colors in this deck, we'll just put all of it in here, and then we'll cut down from here. So 15 cards to cut. I like to generally, just for a simplistic deck strategy like this that doesn't have a very heavy lean towards control or a very heavy lean towards aggro, I like to just go to that basic 15 to 17 creature mark. So we're going to start by cutting 8 creatures, getting down to 17. It's about the max I would probably want in here. Not in love with the Urborg Lurgoyf. The only way we have to kick it is 3 beachfronts, so it just seems probably not great. Snare Spinner, with all these white 2-drops, probably not necessary. Can cut down to like 6 2-mana cards. Faith Bonder's fine. Knight of Dawn's Light is great. Phyrexian Missionary is great, even without a way to kick it. Although it would be a lot better with a way to kick it. Wish I had like at least one black duel in this sealed pool. Unfortunately, we don't. Didn't get any green mana fixing either. I guess we have the 1 Slimefoot Survey, but it's a 5 mana card. We could play 1 Swamp and 1 Slimefoot Survey in here just to try to get missionary value. It's probably not worth it though, without more ways to tutor out the basics. Yeah, sad day. Usually you're going to have at least a little bit more potential mana fixing for something like that, but yeah, we'll still play this as a 2 mana 2/3 lifelink, still a great deal. Keep the Herbalists in for now so we can keep our curve pretty low. 6 2-drops. Let's cut a lot of these 3s though. Vanguards are fine. I think I'll cut 1 though for sure. We might end up cutting Squee, depending on how big the red splash ends up being, but we'll keep Squee in for now. I did say before why I prefer Bog Badger over Hexbane Tortoise, and for that reason I'm going to cut the Tortoise over the Badger. And I think we will cut the Librarian here. I like everything I have at 5 and 6 mana quite a bit, although this is a lot of big cards, so maybe I cut like 1 Phalanx, go 2 Sojourner, 2 Phalanx here. And then Barkweave Crushers are kind of like for the middle of the curve, but when you look at our 6 and 8 drop here, they're both cost reduction cards. Phalanx only costs 4 mana if we have 2 creatures on board, so that will sometimes fit into the 4-drop slot on the curve. And Sojourner, if we have 3 basic land types, I guess if we have 4 basic land types, this will be a 4 mana 4/6, so that will sometimes fit into the 4-drop slot on the curve. A little less often though, I guess if we have a beachfront forest mountain kind of thing going on. So that'll be a little more rare. But we do have a couple 4-drops without the Barkweave Crushers, so I think we're cool to cut those. Because Phalanx will be kind of consistently a 4-drop. And there we go, that's 17 creatures. That would be narrowing down the creatures here. Now we need to cut 7 more cards. We're probably cutting 7 non-lands. Without any ways to really go wide, just the 1 Squee producing tokens. I'm not the biggest fan of Heroic Charge. Would be fine in here, but we're not massively aggressive, and we're not really any kind of token strategy. We've got a lot of good removal in the uncommon slot, so I think that some removal spells can get cut here. Some of the weaker ones, or some of the combat tricks here, can get cut in place of just strong removal spells. So like double Colossal Growth here can get cut. Still need to cut 4 more cards. I'm probably cutting Slimefoot Survey. I just really don't think it's necessary for this deck. I still haven't run this card a single time just because it is so expensive, but if you're a very dedicated domain deck, it might be interesting to play. We're not that dedicated to the domain strategy. We're really a Selesnya deck at our core, splashing a bit of red, so it's just not going to be necessary to fix our mana because our dual lands are pretty good. So cut that 5-drop just very slow. Flowstone Infusion, nice cheap removal. Take up the Shield's a really good combat trick. Fires is good removal, Bite Down is good removal, Hurloon's Battle Hymn, and Citizen's Arrest is good removal. Fire Nado is one of our weakest removal spells, one of our slowest ones. We could cut that with the amount of other good removal that we have. Could cut the Gaia's Might. It's most often just going to be Giant Growth in this deck, 1 mana +3/+3, which is a fine trick. And then at most it'll be +4/+4, which is pretty good when that happens, but won't be super consistent. I think Strength of the Coalition and these other non-creature cards are just better. They're just huge potential tricks. Could see cutting these 2, and then maybe I just cut like 1 more creature out of the deck. Maybe we do cut the Squee. Just keep red to a very light splash to make it simple. Or I could cut 1 of my 2-drops. I've got 6 of them. Cut 1 Herbalist here, probably our weakest 2-mana card because of that 1 toughness. That makes it really bad against 1/1s like 1/1 Saprolings, 1/1 Soldiers, so on and so forth. And we don't really have many ways to enlist this, which is how you get around the weak toughness, is that you just start enlisting it to something like a Faith Bonder, but I only have one enlist card in this deck. So Herbalist does seem pretty weak generally. We'll cut one of those. Maybe we could even cut a second to put a different creature back in. But I don't think we had another good 2-drop creature, and I'd like to stay at like 5 2-mana creatures in here. I guess we could put a Snare Spinner in over an Herbalist. Try it out. Put a Urborg Lurgoyf in over it. Just a 2-mana 0/1 for a little while. I'll put a Snare Spinner in over Herbalist. I think I've had this card at the pre-release come out of my sideboard often enough to think that it might just be a solid main deck addition. Again, against all of the 1/1s and against the 2/2, 2/3, 2/1 flyers. Yeah, I think this is going to be the deck. We're going to go for a Naya strategy here, so let's just make the lands beautiful and do a little deck overview for anybody who skipped the deck building. Alright, one last thing we do have to do here is make sure our mana is good. We have 10 white cards, 9 green cards, and 4 red cards. So 10-9, that should be a pretty even split between green and white. And then we need a bit of red to get our removal spells and maybe cast a Squee now and then. So currently, I have 33 cards in this deck because I just added my pretty lands. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 white sources already with a single plains in the deck. Okay, so for green sources, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 by adding 2 green. And red sources right now, we have 1, 2, 3, 8, 8, 5. Seems like a pretty solid split here. Go up to 3 mountains. That would be 5 red sources. That would be 8 green sources. And that would be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 white sources. Even split on green and white at 8 apiece. And then 5 red. Seems pretty dang good. Really nice mana out of this sealed pool. We'll roll with it. We even have triple blue for domain abilities, as well as the potential Fires of Victory kicker. Alright, here we have a look at the final build of this sealed pool that I'm going for today. We are a Naya deck here. We're mainly Selesnya, mainly green-white, splashing in the red to become the full Naya 3-color pair. At the core of our deck, we've just got some pretty solid creatures in here. Really great 2-drops, a couple Knight of Dawn's Light, and a Phyrexian Missionary. Unfortunately, no way to kick the Missionary, but still, these are very above average creatures to be playing on turn 2. Couple filler ones, the Faith Bonder and the Snare Spinner, that are a bit more narrow, but they'll be fine to fill out the curve. Then when we look at our 3-mana creatures, we have Green Widow being phenomenal, Squee being great as well, and then the filler ones again, Bog Badger, Charismatic Vanguard. And then when we get to our late game, we've got some real beef here. We've got 2 Argivian Phalanx, 2 Yavimaya Sojourner, with 4 different basic land types in this deck, thanks to triple off-color Idyllic Beachfront in here. And then we've got 2 Elfheim Worms, a really big finisher there, and the big flying finisher of Shalai's Acolyte. So really nice creatures in this deck overall. I think we've got great stuff at all levels of the curve, early game, mid game, and late game. So that's what I really love about this. And then we've just got some really solid removal. We don't have any like mega bombs in this deck, but just a really consistent, really solid strategy here. Great creatures at every level of the curve, and some great removal. Citizen's Arrest, Heirloom Battle Hymn, for some later game removal. Bite Down as well with our big creatures, can kill most things. And then for cheap removal that kills small creatures, we have Flowstone Infusion and Fires of Victory. We've also got 2 really big combat tricks. Take Up the Shield, pretty phenomenal, pretty absurd if you get to use this on something like a 4/3 Gloom Widow or a 4/4 Phalanx and win your combat, gain 5 life, and turn that card permanently into a 5/5. Pretty huge. And then Strength of the Coalition, if the board is wide, can absolutely change the course of the game as well, putting a counter on your entire field. So really spicy deck here. No, well, I don't know if I'd say spicy, but really, really solid deck here. Just a solid, consistent strategy. No real like spice on top, but a very hearty meal. So we'll see how it plays out as we head into the gameplay. Alright, here we are in game 1 with a pretty solid hand. We have all three of our important colors here with a turn 2 Phyrexian Missionary to get things started. In some decks, I'd be unhappy to play Phyrexian Missionary turn 2 because of how valuable that kicker can be later, but our deck can't really kick it anyway, so just pretty happy to have that as our 2-drop. See what our opponent wants to do here. They're still deciding mulligans. They are going to go ahead and take a mulligan here. Got a really nice late game Sojourner to be our kind of win condition here. Try to have this big 4/6 on board. Hope it's the biggest card. Fires of Victory if our opponent plays a nice cheap creature. This card does get worse the longer the game goes on if you don't have access to the blue kicker. So we'll definitely have to keep that in mind. Make sure not to dump too much of our hand out if we want to be able to get rid of something with that. Yavimaya Sojourner is going to be 5 mana, so 5 mana 4/6. Perfectly good deal here. That'll definitely be our turn 5 play if we don't hit the blue land next turn. Opponent started with a Tangled Islet for a Forest Island, a green-blue deck at least. You can definitely expect to see a lot of off-color dual lands in Sealed. It's a little hard to try to find out what your opponent's core colors are going to be. Sunbathing Root Walla that already has 3 lands for domain. Probably just going to shoot that with Fires of Victory. It's already able to turn itself into a 5/5 using the ability. Don't need to kill it just yet. It can't use the ability this turn. So I could play Snare Spinner and kill it next turn. Fires of Victory will still do enough damage. Go up to 22, drop a Snare Spinner to block the Root Walla, and pass the turn. Deathbloom Gardener. We could kill a Mana Dork now, which is a little bit tempting. A really good late game Acolyte. Our opponent already has green, blue, black, white. Even if I kill the Mana Dork, they have every color but red. I think I'm killing the Root Walla here. I'll do it now while they're tapped out. If they want to trade their Mana Dork into our 2/3 lifelink, that's fine. We'll keep them off of any extra big plays this turn. They did not want to trade though. Another Tangled Islet coming into play tapped, so they only have 4 mana this turn. Phyrexian Missionary already done a ton of work. 8 life total swing, hit them for 4, gained us 4 life. Just showing off how big that 2/3 body is, just attacking in through that 2/2. Several turns. There's a 4/6 reach now from our opponent. Vanguard can help get through that, but I think for now I'm just going to be playing a 4/6 to attack through that. Not going to attack through the Death Toucher though, which is a problem. Very important to remember, this is one of those hidden reach cards. It's just some random tree, but it's got reach. So do not attack into this with a flyer. Another Root Walla is going to be a very bad time for us. Their domain is at 4. If you ever want a really quick indicator of what someone's domain is at, you can just hover over their card. The little indicator is very nice. They have green, white, blue, and black. They do not have a red land right now. They don't have a mountain in terms of land types. Well, we're in a stalemate now. This is going to happen a lot in Sealed in this format. Happens a decent amount in Draft too, but Sealed it really does. Cards like Joda's Codex are pretty phenomenal in Sealed because of how many games can get cluttered up into board states like this that are just really hard to attack into. So our opponent can tap their Deathbloom Gardener to draw the card off Codex. It only costs 1 mana for them, plus their Gardener can just block Sojourner. We are in a really bad spot here. because our opponent's going to be drawing 2 cards a turn now, and we're in a position where someone needs to draw something that breaks through the current board state. So our opponent's at a pretty large advantage. I don't see any great way to attack in, but an attack with Vanguard would not be horrible. I can trade it off into Magnagoth Sentry, or I can just beat their Root Walla, or trade into the Gardener and let my Sojourner start getting in potentially. I guess Sojourners aren't really going to get in because Root Walla is basically a 6/6 as well. I'd like to, yes, I would really like to do this, because then if I get my next mana for Shalai's Acolyte, that's going to be my game plan here. It's kicking a Shalai's Acolyte, hitting them for 5 a turn in the sky now that they don't have any flying blockers anymore. So I think all in all that went pretty well for me. That's the block I was hoping for. If they didn't block, I would deal 3, that'd be okay. But getting the reach off this board is pretty valuable. Now our opponent has Territorial Morrow as well. That's an 8/8 because they have 4 land types. Not looking great here. Just play our biggest blocker, so we can double block that well at least. We can also double block Root Walla. That's a 6/6 Root Walla at this point. And just keep them off of us, try to hit our 1 more land to kick Shalai's Acolyte, and then hit them 3 times with that. That's still the game plan, but might not get us there because this Jodas Codex is likely to draw our opponent into removal. Very nice domain sealed pool from our opponent, unfortunately. These decks absolutely take over in the late game. Kicked Stronghold Arena. They're going to start losing life. Drawing cards. Oh, it's a May ability. Okay, so they don't have to take the damage. Ooh, 2-mana Argivian Phalanx. All I really want right now is a land, but I guess that's fine. Make it a 1-mana Argivian Phalanx, which is very cute. At least we know we're not really getting hit here. If our opponent doesn't have a ton more win conditions, then our best strategy might just be getting on the mill plan. But it's a really rough position against the Codex that's just going off. Like, at least they aren't really getting in at all. I think I keep Snare Spinner just in case. It's my only flying blocker right now. Ooh, the Citizen's Arrest. Am I arresting Morrow, or am I holding this for if they get a flying blocker later? Right now, I think I'm still in an okay spot to just block everything. I think I'm passing. Like, even if I arrest Morrow, I'm not getting in, because Root Walla's turning into a 7/7, which is just going to block and kill whatever it wants. And then they can trade a Death Toucher into one of my other cards. I mean, they could just block, kill, Death Toucher, and then my board's just a 1/3, so like I still just don't have attacks. They probably have a trick in hand, maybe a removal spell here, so that when I double block, they kill one of my creatures. This is essentially a 7/7, so if it's instant speed removal and I triple block, they still only kill one of my creatures, and I kill the Root Walla. If it's a combat trick, maybe they find a way to kill more creatures than normal, but we'll see. Root Walla can only use its ability once per turn. So it has to be something in hand here. Yep, that's pretty disgusting. Still only kills one of my creatures. This is the way they ordered it. They could have ordered and killed Phalanx and Elfhame Worm, I guess, so I guess I'm glad they didn't. But that was still not a great deal for me. I'm probably going to have to Citizen's Arrest one of their ground troops now, but let's get the Shalai's Acolyte on board so I have an actual game plan. Now that I've hit the mana for it to get kicked, I have an actual potential win condition now. It's gonna take 6 attacks from that card to kill them now, though. Now that they've gained 1,000,000 life from that take up the shield. Citizen's Arrest, yep. They have drawn 6 extra cards at this point, so it was pretty likely they had removal left. Well, at least I still have this Snare Spinner for that Cavalier. Cannot block Morrow well, though. I can double block, or double attack pretty freely here. They're both 10-10s. Actually, no, Root Wall is an 8-8, not a 10-10. Oh, that's pretty rough. Lose both my creatures there, sure. Take 8. And now we have to just get rid of the 10-10. Heirloom Battle Hymn, never mind. I guess I could get rid of both this turn if I don't kick the Battle Hymn. I definitely need to get rid of Root Walla right now while they're tapped out of that mana. I think I kick it and just shoot the Root Walla here. Because they have not been attacking with Morrow at all. I don't see any reason that would change here. Because I guess they just don't want to block with their Deathbloom Gardeners. So they just like having a blocker that can block and kill one of my vigilant attackers without dying. So yeah, they're not attacking with Morrow. Alright, Snare Spinner's gonna die to this trick here so that they can get in with their Griffin Protector. But if I don't block, they're still gonna have the trick in hand for when I do block later, so there's not much I can do about it. We'll just get it out of the way. Oh, that's not bad at all. I still kill the Mesa Cavalier this way. Alright, trade it is. That's not that bad. I don't have a flyer anymore though, so I might have to just arrest the Griffin Protector. Awkwardly enough. Yep, that's where we're at. Been an incredibly uphill battle since the Codex resolved, and the longer that it goes on, the farther you're going to be from winning. They are at 12 cards in library. I mean, kind of impressive that we're still around at this point. But I don't think there's any shot of victory at this point. Best hope was like maybe mill, but our cards are not twice as good as our opponent's cards. That's the only way you're going to beat an opponent with twice as many cards as you. 5 in the sky. We're not dead yet. 4 domain. We've got as full domain as our deck can produce now. They've got great duels for the domain deck. The domain deck is very, very good in sealed if you have dual lands that spread amongst almost all colors. We have pretty good duels for trying to go domain as well, but we just don't have any domain pay. We don't have Morrow or Codex or anything like that. We're taking, what, 4 in the sky? So we can just kill that thing. I have to chump there. I should have blocked the other way. Kept the Phalanx. That was a bad block, but it really doesn't matter right now, so I'm not paying much attention. Oh, and 1. Alright, here we are in game 2. We've got a Missionary and Knight of Dawn's Light to play turn 2. Great 2-drops here. The on-color duel first. Get our domain later. We just play mountain here, so we've got all three of our main colors available. Playing against blue-black. Starting with a Knight of Dusk's Shadow, a 2/2 menace that can buff itself. Also turns off the lifelink from our missionary. So I guess I'll just play the first striker instead, since we don't get any lifelink from missionary anyway. And this is just as hard to block or attack into, if not harder, because of its activated ability that it could get later. We do have a bite down if we really want to get rid of this knight, which will probably happen later. This is a pretty threatening card that scales as the game progresses. It gets better and better. Alright, tribute to Urborg, get rid of our knights here. Suppose we do just cast the missionary then. And hope to bite their Knight of Dusk's Shadow. Got blue, black, and white from our opponent. Take another 2 because of Menace. They have all of their mana up, which makes me not super excited to cast anything here against blue. They could have Essence Scatter up to counter the Sojourner if that's my plan for this turn, but they could just as easily have instant speed removal to shoot Missionary in response to Bite down to ruin that plan. I guess black, blue, white, 3 mana up. They could have Tribute to Urborg, which wouldn't kill Missionary, but it would counter Bite down. So basically they can really easily, at common, have a counterspell for either of my plays this turn. There's no real good way to decipher which they're holding up, so I think the best plan is to wait till post-combat to do something. Okay. Nice, so now we know they have nothing up, so we can do whatever we want and know that it resolves. I think it's better to get the 4/6 down right now while they're tapped out, because we can still bite down next turn and do other things, potentially, if we draw into something that costs 3 or less. Could also just play the Acolyte instead of waiting on it. We had to wait a long time last game to get to the 7 mana, so it might be worth just dumping it on the board. They've got 4 mana up now, holding 5 cards in hand. Extinguish the light on the Sojourner, it's gonna be. Tapped out for that, so we know we can bite the knight now. Outrace them with some lifelink. Also play Shalai's Acolyte while they're tapped out, instead of banking on getting 7 mana. It seems pretty important to me since we have no other creatures in hand. Flavor text on the knight has been pretty annoying this game, just opponents can't gain life, the part that usually doesn't come into effect. They've got a Molten Tributary for a domain or a splash here. Got every color but green, and now a Gibbering Barricade. Kind of annoying on the ground. I could just kick a Strength of the Coalition. I think I attack both. If they don't block, then I bite down, and if they do block, then I just Strength of the Coalition. Cool. We're getting pretty low on life here, and I'm not going to gain any more this turn. Down to 12 here. And they only have 1 creature on board, though, so I still feel like it's not that bad. Got 2 removal spells in hand now. Phyrexian Espionage. Well, we no longer have 2 removal spells. I'd rather bite the knight or arrest it. I feel like whatever I keep in hand, I'm just going to kill the knight with this turn. Guess it's better to bite it, put it in the grave, than exile with Citizen's Rest, because they could have Destroy Evil to destroy my enchantment. A rare occurrence, but a possibility. I guess if I keep Citizen's Arrest, maybe I draw into like a cheap burn spell and use that instead. Yeah. Well, I guess we keep Citizen's Arrest. Oh my god. The hard read. I was like, wait, if I hit one of my cheap red removal spells that only kill small creatures, then it's better to have a Citizen's Arrest waiting than it is a bite down. So that was nice. But I thought through that one a little there. We did get to actually gain life that turn, so back up to 13. Opponent is at 7. They've got a Raven Man down, but it's probably just going to have to chump block here. They're at 7 life. We've got 7 power on board. So if they play another creature, we just delete that and then attack with both. I'm going to hold this Plains in hand. I don't want to arrest the Raven Man. I mean, I guess if Citizen's Arrest resolves and they don't have instant speed removal, then yes, they are just dead. If their plan is a combat trick or something. But Raven Man's just not a problem at all. I mean, I guess when you can present lethal, go for lethal here. Make them have to have instant speed removal. Because otherwise they could have had like the combat trick that gives a +1/+1 counter and lifelink that a lot of people run. Just have more outs if I don't kill Raven Man. Alright, I'm gonna hold this Plains. I could be wrong to do that, but my thinking is they had a Phyrexian Espionage that makes me discard and a Raven Man that makes me discard, so maybe they put, because they have a Raven Man in their deck, they could have put like every discard spell they have into their deck, so they could hit me with like another Phyrexian Espionage, and then if I have to hold another Citizen's Arrest or something, they counter that. Well, that's, that top deck might get me here. This is why I didn't want to arrest Raven Man. Didn't think it mattered that much. There's an argument either way. Arrest is presenting lethal against anything but instant speed removal, but it plays worse when they just draw and cast Defiler Faith the next turn. I guess that could have been in their hand previously off of the draw spell, but they just couldn't afford to play that and hold up the removal spell that last turn. But now we are probably just dying to a 5/5 Vigilance. If they just had a Raven Man down instead, we would force them into a chump by now. They could have maybe discarded a card one time and then played Defiler, and then I exile Defiler, hit them for 3, they're down to 1, they've got a Raven Man, they now have to just chump. Because the tokens Raven Man makes can't block. So I guess that was the big decision point in this game that I should have done differently, was to not Citizen's Arrest the Raven Man. Obviously, in hindsight, I'm super disappointed in it, but I'm not that disappointed with all the information I had at the time going for that Citizen's Arrest. I think that was a reasonable play, even if it is worse than the other play. It's not like infinitely worse, because there's plenty of reasons to try to do that. It just did not pan out well for us. Well, I am really getting got here. Now we've gotten Wrathed, 2 for 1. But we top deck an Alfheim Worm. Just go for it here. Can I just top deck my way out of this game? Nope. Another removal spell from our opponent. Very nice removal over there. We're gonna gain 2 life with that one as well. Top deck war. Back at it again. 6 life to 6 life, both playing off the top. Here's a spider. Arena has all but confirmed I have something that targets a creature in hand. So I played Snare Spinner, it made me wait there. Tolarian Terror, that's bad. and it's very bad. That is super mega big. Doesn't kill me in one hit at least. So I take a hit one time, and then I have to chump it. This gives me more outs in case I draw some kind of additional power kind of spell. Ooh, Charismatic Vanguard. I have 7 mana after this. I have enough mana to buff all my creatures one time and cast Take Up the Shield, which can make Vanguard big enough to trade into Terror. I think I still don't attack it with Snare Spinner because then I'm just dead to one removal spell. One exile removal spell, I guess. I'm going to keep a chump blocker here just in case, rather than hitting them for 1. This is instant speed removal. I'm going to be really sad. Let's find out. It is. Actually, oh my god. That's just destroy, it's not exile. Another card in hand here? Oh my god, their deck is loaded. Double tribute, double extinguish the light, drag to the bottom for a board wipe. Let's triple extinguish the light. Oh my god, I'm getting destroyed today. I am getting destroyed today. That's 0-2. Not much we can do about that at the end there. I'm actually not even sure that Citizens Arresting the 5/5 would have gotten us the win there, because they had 2 cards in hand pretty much that whole game. So they might have just been holding one of those Extinguish the Lights, because all we had was a 3/4 against their 5/5 Vigilance, so they just didn't need to kill it. So they could have just been holding removal that whole time, just in case I got a better card. So my whole thought there that, oh, if I had just held Citizen's Arrest and killed this 5/5 Vigilance, then I would have probably won by now, killing with Missionary, might have just been false, because they were holding multiple cards the whole game, and by the end of the game they'd cast like 6 removal spells. And they cast a removal spell on pretty much every threat that we made after the board wipe. So they very well could have just had removal in hand anyway, even if I had arrested. That was brutal. That was a very, very good deck from our opponent. We are 0-2 heading into round 3. Here we are in game 3. We don't have our red source, and we have 2 of our red cards here, which is a little awkward, but I've got Snare Spinner, I've got an Elfheim Worm to try to close this game out. I do have 5 red sources in the deck. It's a bit awkward, but I'm going to keep it here and just go for it. Alright, we're only 1 mana away from being able to cast Elfheim Worm late game, which is going to be pretty sweet. Snare Spinner's probably solid against a deck with blue in it, although it is blue-green, so it could just be Domain going on here, but they do play a 2 mana flyer here, so Snare Spinner are going to put in some work. Keep that Battlewing Mystic off of us. Did draw pretty well here. We hit a Badger to play in the middle of our curve. Our best draws this game would just be more spells to play between Snare Spinner and Elfheim Worm or the red source. We hit one of those things. We hit just more spells to play in the middle. Deathbloom Gardener from our opponent. Still just blue and green out of their lands. Ooh, Llanowar Green Widow. We just keep playing reach creatures, I guess. There's no reason not to cast that, but we'll do it post-combat, I guess. Offer the traded Bog Badger into Gardener. Gotta get the Death Toucher out at some points, and it gets rid of their Mana Dork. They trade. Alright. 3 damage it is. Here comes Llanowar Green Widow. Reach, Trample, and recastable from our graveyard. Spider Tribal this game. Talus Lookout, 3/2 flyer that draws them a card out of the top 2 when it dies. It's a pretty good deal. Would love to hit a red source now. We can infusion that thing. If we don't hit a red source, any land lets us get the Elfhame Worm down at least. Don't love attacking into the Lookout, but it's probably worth trading a Badger into it even though they draw a card. So I think we're attacking both again. Okay, yeah, attack both, drop Elfhame Worm. Green Widow is a fair trade into anything because we can recast it later. Badger just because it's one of our least significant creatures, because we are going to be playing bigger stuff. Badger trades into the Lookout. Green Widow does 4 to their face, putting them down to 13 here. And then we're going to drop the Elfhame Worm. 5/4 Vigilance, Trample. They only have 2 power on their board right now. They're very likely to be able to cast more power or interaction, but 8 Trample on the board, or 9 Trampling power on the board feels pretty good. Snare Spinners put in a ton of work this game. I guess we did end up drawing into a Green Widow anyway, but the fact that this Battlewing Mystic has not gotten to hit us once and has not gotten to block once either is just like really nice. Just completely nullified Battlewing Mystic's usefulness for many turns. Another Talus Lookout, very nice. Opponent did end up milling a blue-black duel with their first one. That is the most awkward card we could have drawn here. I guess we have 4 red cards, so Squee would have been equally awkward. There's only 1 red card left in the deck now, though. I think we're just setting in the Trample. Being in a pretty incredible spot here with a red source, though. So do I just wait for that? Just hit them a bunch. Guess they block Elfhame Worm, take 4, block Green Widow, take 2. Green Widow is going to cost 6 mana to bring back. I need another mana to bring Green Widow back, which means if I attack, they block with Gardener, block with Lookout. I have absolutely nothing. I have a 1/3 and nothing castable. I might have to just start passing right now. That's pretty bad. 4/4 Flying Djinn with a bunch of extra abilities. Right on time. Things were about to really turn a corner into a bad spot for us if we didn't hit a mountain this exact turn. But hitting the mountain, getting rid of the Djinn immediately while they're tapped out seems pretty good. Oh no, they've got 1 mana. So they can cast a 1 mana instant sorcery to save the Djinn. They have a 1 mana instant. Most of the 1 mana instants I could think of could save the Djinn anyway. Like a shore up. I guess the -1/-0 draw card. Yeah, that's really bad. Exile the Djinn, bring it back this turn. Well, that means the Djinn's not out to block and the Death Toucher isn't out to block. I'm very interested. They could have just +1/+1 the Djinn and it would have lived. I guess this way I don't gain the life, but now that the Death Toucher's tapped, I'm actually just going in. Plus I have Domain for Green Widow. Okay, that did not go as badly for us as it could have. I would have hated that more if my opponent just kept the Djinn on board. +1/+1'd it. Although I guess then it would have traded into like Worm on attack still. Okay, well now this is horrible. We just have a ton more creatures to play since they've drawn some extra cards here. Off all these lookouts that I've had to fight through. Opponent definitely has the card advantage. There's an Acolyte when we hit 7. I could spend 5 for a Green Widow, still have 2 for Infusion. Just coming to play tapped though. Put them to 1 life with infusion. If they block with like their Death Toucher here. But I could also kill the Death Toucher and put them to 2. I think I'm gonna make it look like I don't really have anything at this point, and then attack with Worm, and maybe they just block with Death Toucher. That would be the best block for us. But by spending all my mana to Green Widow, I'd only have 1 mana up, so there's less tricks to play around. Alright, well they do block with Sentry, which I think just happens. I don't think Flowstone Infusion helps enough here. Just does 2 extra damage, either creature I cast it on. Everything still trades. Alright, well I can Infusion the Djinn so that it trades into Snare Spinner if my opponent doesn't have another instant or sorcery. But if I trade Snare Spinner into Djinn, then I'm not blocking the Battle of Mystic Soaring Drake, all that stuff. Plus I won't have Flowstone Infusion to use on attacks. So I think I just let this in. There's just too much that can go wrong. Literally any instant or sorcery in their hand can ruin that. Even if it's just 1 mana, draw a card. Like an Impulse or something. The Djinn just has too many good effects. Be able to flicker itself, completely get it out of combat, be able to give +1/+1, if that makes it big enough. There's a ton that can go wrong. Phalanx here, I can still afford Fire's Victory or Flowstone Infusion. Can't do both. I guess I just keep my mana up for now. Come on, Green Widow. Let's find lethal out of nowhere. Let's just cheat lethal in here. No blocks. Impulse to flicker the Djinn. To block with it? No, scry 1 and then Impulse. Guess they're just looking for any combat tricks or instant speed removal, just in case that affects this combat at all, and then if it doesn't, they're probably still going to block here. They're going to block with the Death Toucher. No. They're going to block with both of the Flyers. Okay, if they don't have interaction here, this is going to be very good. Alright. Pretty huge turn there. Clear out both of those Flyers. And drop down Phalanx or a 3/4 Flyer of my own. I think I need evasive threats right now. I drop the 3/4. So if they attack me with Djinn, they have nothing that can block this 3 damage, plus this one has trample, so it kind of keeps them from attacking with Djinn if they don't have an Essence Scatter here. They don't have an Essence Scatter to counter the Acolyte. The Pixie Illusionist, well, now they've got a flying blocker. It's only a chump blocker though, 3/3 status. Can trade into the Green Widow though. Probably should have Fires of Victoried. I guess if I played Fires of Victory here, I wouldn't have the mana for the Acolyte that turn. But if I Fires of Victory last turn, then I'd still have Infusion. Fires of Victory is just harder to make it enough damage to kill something at this point. I think I play Beachfront so I can draw a card and shoot for 1 with Fires. Fires, the whole plan with that is just going to be to kill a Death Toucher now. Green Widow's probably trading with Illusionist. Can't do anything about that. Maybe I just don't attack right now. Because, yeah, attack in, trade with Illusionist, deal 1. That's just not where it's at. This can't attack, just gets blocked by the Djinn. Could even trade with the Djinn would be good, but I don't think they're going to do that. Yeah, I don't think we actually attack this turn. Green Widow only comes back 1 time. It's going to exile next time it dies. If I could just keep bringing it back over and over and over again, I'd absolutely attack here, but I can't. Oh, that's really nice. Battle of Mystic kicked. Deathbloom Gardeners are a really good role filler in green decks and limited because of their ability to hit all these off-color kickers. So very sad I didn't open up any Deathbloom Gardeners. Or any, there's an artifact creature that's pretty good at that too. A 2-mana 1/3 for 1 mana. You can convert that 1 mana into a mana of any color. It's also a great card to enable all your kicker effects. Alright. Got a decent value Fires of Victory. Do 2 damage to a target. They have 1 card in their hand. These offer trades at worst. And we're holding up a Fires if any funny business happens. Fires is pretty sick nasty here. I'm pretty sure it just kills them. Right, I'm gonna kill this Pixie Illusionist, that's for sure. I'm gonna do 1 damage to Gardener, 3 damage to their face, and then Fires for... Oh, Fires doesn't target players? Damage to target creature or planeswalker. So close to lethal. I guess we Fires now then on the Gardener. Draw Yavimaya Sojourner, that'll be a good one later. Alright, we're getting rid of one of their flyers and putting them to 1 life now. Big old Barkweave Crusher. Big old Yavimaya Sojourner, and we're gonna start staring at each other and hoping we don't lose the top deck war. I have lost a couple of those in a couple rounds here. And I'm starting to lose this one. How does an attack all go for us? It goes horribly. Trade. I'm sorry, they kill without losing a creature. Just block. Trade there. Maybe I go Faith Bonder in. Make the Faith Bonder trade into something, because I can make it 5 power. I guess. Yeah, I guess. 5 power creature. Trade into the 3/3, alright. What are our outs here? What's our best bets to get out of this game? Strength of the Coalition. Phyrexian Rager on 1 life is even better. Oh no, opponent. Oh no. What are our outs this game, he says. Oh god, alright, well. We're 1-2 now. It's not going to be an 0-3 after that one. I will take it. Heading into round 4 now. Really unfortunate ending there for our opponent. Alright, here we are now in round 4. We've got a turn 3 Bog Badger to get things started. Phalanx is a big late game creature and some very good mana and interaction in this hand. So a definite keep. Playing against Pomegranate Unicorn. Big fan of the name, that's pretty nice. I don't think I've ever eaten a pomegranate just by itself. It's a strange fruit. But pomegranate juice is pretty good. Alright. Come on in, Bog Badger. Let's get this game started, shall we? Opponent is on Naya as well. We see a red-green duel, a plains and a mountain. Charismatic Vanguard is going to be their first play. I would like to still be able to attack with this Bog Badger, so I am actually going to bite down the Vanguard. Try to apply some early game pressure here, get some damage in. Shouldn't be too hard to do with Knight of Dawn's Light. It's pretty hard to block this well. So next turn we get to play a land. We're threatening to double pump the Knight. Even if our opponent has a decently big blocker, we can get in a couple points of damage with the Knight and then just drop Phalanx. After we've threatened to pump the Knight of Dawn's Light. That's one of the things that's really nice about abilities like this. You can always just like show that you have the mana available, where if your opponent blocks, you buff it enough to kill their creatures, then they're not going to want to block, which means you're guaranteed to get your like 2 damage in there, and then you can still just play whatever you wanted to play that turn with your mana anyway. There's some value added to these abilities that isn't just the value you get when you activate them. There's also the value you get by threatening to activate them. We're not going to have to threaten to activate it against a squee. They're already just not going to want to block that. Or with that, I should say. Now I have to choose between Phalanx and Citizen's Arrest. I'm pretty sure I just play Phalanx, because if they don't have removal to break through here, they just still can't get in with Squee. If they do get in with Squee, that's mildly bad. They get a 2/2 and a 1/1. But they're all going to be tapped, so I can still just hit them back for 5 if their turn is just remove Phalanx, attack with Squee. So honestly, I think Phalanx should be fine here. Even if, yeah, the turn is just like Citizen's Arrest, attack with Squee. Crack back, they're down to 7. And just kill Squee that turn. They've just gotten a 1/1 out of the deal, basically. Ideally, I don't have to Citizen's Arrest Squee, because Squee's not very good at blocking here. And on the offensive, with more creatures out than our opponent, that's what matters most. How good their creatures are at blocking. I suppose Squee's theoretically a little better at blocking because of the 1/1s it gets. Those are good at chumping. Archangel of Wrath, though, is an incredibly good blocker, being lifelink. But now I just have to take up the shield to cast as well, so I get to just get in there and still hold up Citizen's Arrest for post-combat. But I may not even have to Citizen's Arrest now. Yeah, because I can just have my Bog Badger take up the shield. Bog Badger has sworn its life to protect the realm. Thank you, Badger. Sir Badgerton. Now, there was a fine argument for just arresting the Archangel anyway, so they couldn't get any life on that block. But I think it's probably better to just still have Citizen's Arrest over just holding the take up the shield for later. There's a Citizen's Arrest of their own, getting rid of the Phalanx for sure. Probably attack with Squee, because it's not really doing much on blocks. Yep. They're going to get their 1/1 they can now chump block with in the future. We've got another forest. I'm going to start holding these in case I hit like a Fires of Invention. That's a different card. Fires, whatever kind of fire that requires extra cards in your hand. I might want to Citizen's Arrest Squee just so they can't get more chump blockers. Squee can't come back from the graveyard if it's exiled as well. This only exiles creatures and planeswalkers, so I can't exile their Citizen's Arrest, but that would have been a fine option if I could. I could see this going pretty poorly for me because I am out of gas here and our opponent still has 4 more cards, so my fingers are a little crossed here, but we'll see what happens. My only other line there is kind of just like hold Bog Badger for blocks so they don't get any more squee tokens, and then just that way I get to keep Citizen's Arrest. I feel like my best bet at this level of disparity in terms of cards in hand is to just try to close this thing out. But I don't know. Dragon Whelp is fine. They could double buff that to trade into Bog Badger. I guess right now they could buff it once and then they trade both of those into Bog Badger. Elfhame Worm is a great draw. Definitely going to attack into this board state with Bog Badger, because they'll lose both of their creatures to kill the Badger. Dragon Whelp can get buffed twice when they have double red, but they don't right now. I'm pretty sure Thran Portal's on white. Yeah. Oh, that's nasty. Wow. Well, that was horrific. A 1-mana combat trick. Now they still have the Dragon Whelp, which can single-handedly block and kill the Elfhame Worm, because it can buff itself twice, make it 4 power, block and kill a worm. If I draw my one card that cares about my cards in hand, that card has a blue kicker, so I probably should play the blue land instead of just keeping that in hand. Do I trade in this Dragon Whelp, or do I just wait for more tricks or removal? Probably am waiting for removal here. Fires of Victory, that's the card I was thinking of. Not Fires of Invention, that one's the absurdly good Eldraine enchantment. Fires of Victory is the instant from this set that deals damage equal to cards in hand. Yavimaya Iconoclast, that does get 1 attack in thanks to the kicker. We'll be down to 17 now. Snare Spinner is actually not the worst draw in our deck. I mean, it's better than any land we could have drawn, but can also block Dragon Whelp and kill it, so that's kind of interesting. This deck's pretty sick. Oh, there's the Fires of Victory. That's 2 damage right now. I think I have to wait till it's 3 so we can try to kill this Dragon Whelp. And I can still cast this as an instant during their turn if something wacky happens and I need to cast it immediately. Hexbane Tortoise, that is not wacky enough. This is actually kind of good on this board state, because then I'm going to have to trade into it on blocks. I guess it's just going to hit me for a bunch of attacks as a 6/2. And then, yeah, I don't have a good block for that. Alright, we'll go to my turn now, and we will kick a Fires of Victory. Pretty sure we pay like that. Very important when you have a lot of dual lands in your decks. The auto tapper gets really confused sometimes, especially if you have off-color duels that really don't matter. You should not let the auto tapper do things in this format, because it will prioritize your dual lands over your basics, even if your dual lands are colors that don't matter at all. So like, say I had a blue-black duel right now, or something like that, it would try to keep that mana up instead of tapping it as one of the generic mana needed for that spell. Wow, and I draw into Heirloom Battle Hymn? I can ruin a block with that. So I'm going to send in the Elfhame Worm. If they don't have a combat trick, this is going to be really good. If they do have a combat trick, it does play pretty poorly. They probably have something in hand here. Green, red, white, and they are not auto-passing. Feel like if they had a combat trick, they'd probably just use it here. So let's see. Alright. Hit for 4, potentially? Yeah, hit for 4. They're down to 3 life now. All they have is that tortoise. A lot of cards in hand, though. Don't know what they've got. Oh, lightning strike. That makes sense. That makes sense. That will still finish off our creature, but at least we killed 2 of theirs and trampled over for some damage. Still got a pretty good deal there. We unfortunately do not have a lightning strike in our deck, so there's no card we could draw into that's just immediately just bam, shoot our opponent for 3, but Phalanx is pretty good on this board. That is going to start threatening our opponent quite a bit. Oh, they've got their black source now, if that matters. That could explain the amount of cards just sitting in hand here. They could also just be sandbagging their lands, like I'm doing a little bit here. It could also just be a ton of tricks, so they can kill this Phalanx here. They have to chump block if they don't have any tricks. If they do have tricks, then they would just love to block and cast a trick. Alright, well, Gaia's Might it is. Goodbye, Phalanx. Alright. Geothermal Bog might just be in there to up domain. We might be okay. Banalish Faith Bonder. Actually, yet again, these random 2-mana 1/3 dorks that we've been drawing look like potentially some of the worst draws in our deck, but just randomly have some pretty solid abilities to have in these situations. The Snare Spinner when my opponent had a flyer, and now the Faith Bonder, which I can enlist the Snare Spinner to so that I'm attacking for 2. So that it's big enough to trade into Tortoise, or at least force them to use a combat trick on my 1/3 instead of something bigger later. Oh no, that is nuts here. Is that worth an attack with both creatures? I think it is. Either creature is going to be a 2/4. And then whichever creature gets in is the one that we give the additional +2/+2 to. So if our opponent does not have instant speed interaction here, this can be game. We target the creature that gets through. Even if they can kill the creature that gets through with an instant speed removal spell, our other creature will still be a 2/4 and beat the tortoise in this combat. Actually, if they can blow up the Snare Spinner at instant speed, that might counter this spell, because they're destroying the only target this spell has. The other effect is not targeted. Let's see. Oh, let's stall for time. That doesn't do anything. Let's just draw a card, try to get out of this. Try to draw into removal now. Alright. No instant speed removal for the Snare Spinner is going to find us lethal that game, and we are going to be 2-2 now, heading into round 5. Alright, here we are now, round 5 on the play. Turn 2, Knight of Dawn's Light. Perfect mana. Bog Badger turn 3 and Sojourner later this game. Oh wow, this curve just keeps getting better. I'll just play a Llanowar Green Widow turn 3. It's going to be a pretty nasty start to this game. We'll see how our opponent comes back from this one. Balmor Battle Mage Captain. Alright, pretty nasty start for our opponent as well. That's definitely threatening. We can attack here. We're threatening to pump if they block. So that, again, one of those threat of activation things where if they block, we get to pump it and kill their creature, and if they don't block, I get to just keep slamming creatures down, which is great here. But yeah, turn 2 Knight of Dawn's Light into turn 3 Llanowar Green Widow. Pretty nasty curve. Got a bite down now as well. I could bite down and pump the Knight of Dawn's Light. I guess we save all that stuff for instant speed if we need it, and if we don't need anything, we just play a 3/3 this turn. No blocks. Yeah, I guess we're just playing a 3/3. They are down to 12. Pass the turn. Alright. So they played a Haunting Figment. Sorry, I was just checking an important text. Haunting Figment, we've got Phyrexian Missionary, Bite Down available. Still got Bite Down mid-combat plus Activate mid-combat, so I think we just attack all again with our opponent at 12 here. Big Trampler on this board. Just keep jamming in. Oh, they've got the new Goblin pet over there. I don't know what goblin it is. It's got some very fancy armor. Alright, block the Knight of Dawn's Light. Chump block the Badger. And take 4. On board, this is all fine, so I'm not going to do anything if my opponent doesn't do anything. I'll just play a Missionary and hold a Bite Down up during my opponent's turn. I can buff the Knight of Dawn's Light to kill this Berserker, but it doesn't seem necessary to me, and it would... I guess it wouldn't tap me out of my only piece of interaction, would not tap me out of Bite Down. But I'd kill the Berserker. They'd do 1 more damage to Bog Badger if I do that. So actually, I think I just let this happen. If I buff the Knight... Ooh, take up the shield. Now I might Bite Down. I could buff the Knight so it survives, but if I Bite Down, I'm making sure... Oh wait, no, they're giving their whole field plus and plus, so if I Bite Down, I'm making sure they don't gain any life here, but then they can shoot Bog Badger and get it killed this turn. Yeah, this was a pretty good play from our opponent. Unfortunately, yeah, Bog Badger's just gonna die now, so whatever, I'll send a message. I'll use the Bog Badger to kill the Berserker. Counter all their life gain this way. But I guess, yeah, since Bog Badger's gonna die anyway, because the Figment's getting plus 1 plus 0 here, this is actually not bad at all. Yeah, no, that was actually super fine. Cool. And drop another creature to get in for more damage. Tolarian Geyser, bounce this Llanowar Green Widow, so we will not be attacking with that this turn. They're going to block Missionary, take the Knight of Dawn's Light damage, I am guessing. Ooh, a Squee! If they have a 1-mana instant, this is going to be bad, but otherwise, Squee is pretty aggro here. I think I'm going to drop Squee. Hopefully no 1-mana instant like Timely Interference. That would be very sad for Squee. Squee would not be long for this world. Looks like a no to me. So we get in, put them down to 5. They're just going to scoop them up. Just a bunch of really efficient, cheap creatures that game, putting us pretty firmly on the aggressive there. Rough time for our opponent. That is going to put us to 3-2 now. A very nice recovery after 0-2 start. Managing to balance it out to at least an even win rate. A 50-50 run or better here. Alright, here we go. We are in round 6. Opponent on the play. Not great mana here, missing on the red again, but that is our least represented color. It's going to happen at times. We can cast almost anything we draw into at 3 mana with green-white, double white as well for Citizen's Arrest. Don't love it, but we're on the draw. I'm going to keep it. Knight of Dawn's Light is a great draw. That's a phenomenal turn 2 play. Especially against a 2-2 Death Touch. That'd be really hard to attack or block into without a first striker. I suppose I could just Flowstone Infusion it right now, but it's probably better to get the Knight out and maybe kill it next turn with Flowstone Infusion. Really lucky draw hitting that red source so early. Next turn we could play the Faith Bonder and Flowstone Infusion this Elas Ilkor before it does anything too nasty. It is going to gain them a little bit of life here though. Aw, Chubutzer Urborg, there goes our first striking Knight. I suppose instead of gaining them some life, it will deal 2 damage to us then. I could play a Snare Spinner instead of a Faith Bonder. I think I'd rather drop Faith Bonder though. We are definitely on Flowstone Infusion though. Our opponent is stuck on 2 mana here. Kept a 2-lander here, and it did not pan out for them that turn, but they have hit the 3rd land now. I'm going to assume that means they can cast almost everything in their hand, or something very important like a Phyrexian Rager. Definitely have kept 2-landers like that before, a 2-lander, but like if I hit my 3rd land, I'm casting Phyrexian Rager, and I should be good from there, so very fair keep from our opponents. I really don't want to shoot a Phyrexian Rager for 2, so I guess I'm just passing here. I cannot enlist Snare Spinner here because you can only enlist creatures that are not summoning sick. So no attack with Benalish Faithbonder this turn. But I might as well start enlisting the Snare Spinner if they don't get a better creature down, or if I shoot their better creature with my Battle Hymn. Knight of Dawn's Light, that is a better creature. Probably going to attempt to shoot that with this Battle Hymn, especially if I hit a tap land. If I hit an untapped land, there'd be some contention between these 2 cards, but since this is my only play I can try to make this turn, I might as well try to make it. They can buff it once, but that won't make it big enough to survive. If they have the Indestructible combat trick, they could cast that. There's actually 2 of them in black-white, because there's a common in white that puts, a +1/+1 counter on a creature and gives it indestructible and lifelink, and there's a combat trick in black that gives a creature death touch and indestructible. So there were 2 different commons they could have had there. Luckily for us, they did not. Opponent has 5 mana up now. They look to be just black-white so far. Looking to be one of the least multicolored decks we've seen thus far. But it happens. Sometimes you don't open up a lot of good fixing. I had 1 sealed pool at the pre-release where I'm pretty sure I opened 2 dual lands total. It was really sad. That was my worst run. I was blue-white, and I went 2-2. Archangel of Wrath kicked once. That card is absolutely disgusting. One of the strongest rares in the set. Luckily for us, 1/3s play really well against that card. However, unluckily for us, Snare Spinner is 1 power too little to kill that. So I could play Shalai's Acolyte, so I threatened to double block and kill it. Or I can just play an Elfhame Worm and start hitting them back. Not going to win that race though, because they're going to hit me for 3 and gain 3. That's a life total swing of 6, whereas Elfhame Worm is just a life total swing of 5. It's tempting to hold on to this Acolyte though if I can hit more lands. If I had like 1 land in hand, I think I'd go Elfhame Worm, hold on to Acolyte, but without another land, I think I'm just going to play Acolyte here, hope they don't have removal in hand. Very, very possible that they do, though. In black-white, there's some good common removal. They've only spent 1 removal spell so far, Tribute to Urborg. They could have Extinguish the Light or Citizen's Arrest. Either of those would destroy any target creature. Well, looks like a no to me. They're just going to cast a Griffin Protector, and now we'll start playing our Elfhame Worms. We're keeping the Archangel off of us, and we'll start smacking our opponent in the face with some worms. I'm going to hold on to this mountain in case I draw a Fires of Victory. So I'm always going to hold like 1 land in hand at this point. Could be worth it to hold more though, because Fires of Victory, we're going to want it to do at least like 3 damage to be very impactful here. If I'm just holding a mountain and I draw Fires of Victory, all I can do is draw 1, which would be 2 damage to something. I guess I can kill the Rager, but really like to be able to kill one of these flyers at least. Ideally the Archangel, so it might be worth holding 2 lands. Maybe even 3 later. Alright, let's see. They have some form of trick. The only thing they can kill Faithbonder with is one of the flyers, specifically the Archangel, so it's actually maybe even better to just enlist the worm. Because they're going to have to kill... Yeah. And this is where enlist is pretty good. We put them in a position where they're going to have to kill Faith Bonder to get to the Elfhame Worm. They have to kill Faith Bonder, they're going to keep taking 6. And then once Faith Bonder dies, then I just start attacking with Elfhame Worm, and then they need to kill that worm, or they're going to keep taking 5. Yeah, pretty great position for the Faith Bonder. I'm going to put in some work this game. Yeah, forces a chump block there. And now we'll drop our Elfhame Worm. Again, keeping these lands. So if I hit Fires of Victory, I can kill a Griffin Protector at the very least. Balduvian Atrocity. Ooh, well, that makes the chump block very good for them because they can kick that to return the Phyrexian Rager to the board. Just for a turn, but it does draw them another card. It does get its enter the battlefield effect again, and that's 2 creatures entering the battlefield this turn, making their Griffin Protector get a nice 4 damage swing in. Unless I double block, but if I double block, I don't have the blockers for the Archangel. Okay. So we're going to take the 4 here. Go for our safest block on the Phyrexian Rager. Now they have a Splatter Goblin. That's pretty unfortunate. That blocks as though it has 3 power, because it gives something -1/-1 when it dies. So they can actually kill the Faith Bonder with that this turn. Just a bunch of lands for us here. I may play the tapped lands here. I won't be able to kill Archangel with it with a Fires of Victory if I draw into it, but start putting the Elfhame Worms at risk because they only have 1 white mana up. This might be, because of the Splatter Goblin, it might just be better to just send in both worms. They have to double block to kill one. I guess they could block one with the Archangel and the other with the Atrocity and Goblin, and that would kill both of the worms, but it would also kill their whole board. Everything except their Griffin Protector. I think we do that. Now that there's a Splatter Goblin around. Cannot think of a 1 white mana trick in this format. The big one is 2 mana. Yeah, they're just going to take 10 to the face. Alright, get in there, Elfhame Worms. Geothermal Bog for our opponent. Oh, we have found the 3rd color. Forgot to mention it. They've got red now for the Atrocity Kicker and stuff like that. Sojourner's a pretty solid draw. Pretty solid draw. They have much better blocks now that they have another 2/3 up. They can block one of these worms with 2 2/3s. They only kill one of their creatures. Off of that block. The other block, though, if they want to block like that, is not as good. So I think I am sending both in again and then playing a Sojourner. Although I could send in Faith Bonder instead to get rid of his Splatter Goblin. I think I'm sending both in again. It's got to be some kind of trick here if this is the block. Let's say if they're going to chump with Griffin Protector anyway, I would have expected it to go on this worm. So there's probably maybe the instant speed card that makes 2 1/1s or something. Nope. Just all gonna... Oh, maybe it's a trick to kill Acolyte. They've got Lightning Strike or something. I think they still could have just blocked the other way. I guess they take more damage, though, because there's less toughness. Yeah, just playing it safe, saving a lot of life there. Here's the Yavimaya Sojourner. They're gonna Lightning Strike the Elfhame Worm, actually just fully on the defensive here. One final card in my opponent's hand. It is a Tattered Apparition with enough mana to buff it twice, making it a 4/4 blocker. Llanowar Green Widow, that's a heck of a draw. I think we are at the point now we don't have to worry about Archangel of Wrath attacking us, especially since we're playing a 4-power reach creature. So I think we're attacking with Sojourner and Faithbonder here and starting to clear out their blockers. They can block and kill the Apparition and then just take 4 if they want, or they can trade off the Archangel now. They don't have the mana to buff the Apparition big enough to survive blocking Faithbonder. So they're going to go to 1 life. We're going to drop a Llanowar Green Widow, and they're going to need... Oh wait, no, they gained 3. They gained 3 off the block, never mind. They are still going to need a pretty good draw to stop us from hitting lethal this turn. We have 8 damage on board. They block our biggest threat, take 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and they did not get a great draw in the end there, so we are turning our 0-2 start into a 4-2 run so far. Very, very sweet comeback here as we head into Game 7. Game 7 now, another phenomenal start. Turn 2 Knight of Dawn's Light into Charismatic Vanguard. Could also go Missionary instead, I guess. That is an option as well. Against a red deck here, yeah, let's threaten to gain some life. If they drop a 2-mana 3/1, that's the only thing that could go bad for us here. And they did not. Let's drop Charismatic Vanguard. Mono red so far. And Flowstone Kavu. Alright, well, Knight of Dawn's Light would have attacked into that better. But they don't have the mana to buff it right now, so our attacks are still fine. A trade into Vanguard is not the end of the world. It's going to be quite some time before I want to buff the Vanguard. Because on turn 5, when I have the mana to do that, I'm really going to want to play this Elfame Worm instead. Still mono red for our opponent. They cannot be a mono red deck. They just kept a 1-colored hand because they have Defiler of Instinct, which is pretty good. That is nearly impossible to attack into, but thanks to Flowstone Infusion, I can 2-for-1 myself to kill that, which is probably worth it. Because nothing else will attack into it ever. Because everything else has 4 or less toughness. Alright. If they don't block, I'll cast the Elfame Worm. Alright. Get some tradesies. Hoping that was the entire reason they kept the mono-colored hand, and without that, they don't have much left. And we can close out this game. I should have kept that in case of Fires of Victory. Uh-oh. They hit their second color here. See if it gets them out of this. 3 1/1s is pretty good. Not good against Elfame Worm, but definitely good against Missionary. Put them down to 9 and drop a Faithbonder to start attacking in. Start enlisting the Missionary. I always like to say crewing instead of enlisting. That's just what my mind goes to when you have to tap a creature to get attacking in. Wow. I'm gonna kill that. If they hit another white source, though, they can just put counters on all their stuff anyway. But yeah, I'm gonna... Actually, should I kill that after they make their blocks to ruin their plans? I think I will. I'm gonna do it after blocks, and then I ruin their counting here, because I turn all the 2/2s into 1/1s, where they think they can just double block Elfame Worm and kill it. Yeah, now they kill neither creature. This should be game ending. They only have red mana ups. There's no way they can save this veteran. Yeah, we just wiped the whole board. Yeah. Rough one for my opponent there, just stuck off the second color for a while, and then the interaction plays really well against trying to block with all your 2/2s, and then all of a sudden I turn them back into 1/1s. Really nasty stuff there, going to bring us up into 5-2 now. Not quite breaking even. Sealed is quite expensive. You do break even if you get to 6 wins, though. So next round, the most important one, decides whether or not we break even. But even if we lose next round, still a fantastic comeback after our first 2 rounds. Here we are now, round 8, opponent on the play. Opponent kept a grip of 7. We've got all our main colors. Very solid start with missionary. Good tricks, removal. We'll keep it here. Do need to hit our splash color of red eventually, but no red cards in hand yet. Let's see what we can do with this hand. Turn 2, Phyrexian Missionary is going to be the first play of the game. Our opponent has a blue-green duel and a plains. And a mountain, another domain deck. Could be pretty nasty here if you've got the good domain mana fixing. One of the best things you can do in sealed. And they do have the domain mana fixing. Dual land, plains, mountain, weather seed, treaty. Just takes another plains though. Get that double white at the ready, maybe a citizen's arrest or some other double white card in hand here. We don't really have anything to cast here, no decisions really. Just send in. They are going to get a 1/1 Sapperling this next turn, and then they're going to get a big domain trample attack in later. Alright, could be just Naya at the core like our deck, but running some domain synergies. Much like we are. Now, nothing I can really do about a 4/4 reach here. That's just going to be the biggest thing on board. If I had my red man, I could deal with it, but without it, I'm not going to 2-for-1 myself and get rid of Bite Down and take up the shield just to kill that. And that's a 5/5 Sapperling coming on in. We'll take 9. Pretty nasty here. And a Griffin Protector from my opponent. I guess I could take up the shield Bite Down to kill that. So I'm actually doing something this turn and I don't fall majorly behind here. Because next turn I'm gonna have to tap out and just play a creature. I really don't like that. But I kind of think it might be where we're at. It's a big decision point of this game. If we end up losing this game to our opponent being too aggressive, then that would have been, I should have attacked before playing the Phalanx, but that would have been a big turning point potentially, where I could have done a thing to stop more damage and chose not to. Chose to try to get greedy and get full value off of all these tricks. Juniper Order Root Weaver. Counter on Sentry would be really bad for us here. Then Phalanx can't block it well anymore. Pretty solid card in this position. And that is where the counter is going. Griffin Protector gets +1/+1 till end of turn as well, and we're going to take 8 to the face. You just straight up have removal too? Okay, well, guess it didn't matter. We're pretty dead. Down to 6. I am not going to have the mana to hold up this Take of the Shield ever, unfortunately. Yeah, this sucks. Not much else to say. I think a red source would have vastly changed the course of this game. The biggest thing that we could have done would have been take up the shield Bite Down that turn. Just have to do that, but then I'm just behind in cards because I have 2-for-1 myself just to kill a bird. They still have 3 cards left, so don't even know if that would save us. At this point I probably have to play Phalanx and pass. Again, I guess I play Elfame Worm pass. At least that's big enough to kill Sentry. This is super rough. Yikes. That is a big yikes. That is immediate Griffin Protector lethal? I guess not quite, but I don't have enough life gain for that to not be lethal through Griffin Protector, so yeah. The turn that I marked as a big decision point turn didn't matter a ton here, because now we're just dead. If Griffin Protector were gone here, we had a slight chance this game. Still not a great one. We're quite a bit behind on cards that time. But should have just bit the bullet there, so to speak, killed one of their cards. I guess they didn't end up having a ton of interaction, so maybe that one turn I was considering the double spell to shoot Protector, I should have just double spell shoot Magnagoth Sentry there. Although I think Protector would end up doing more damage. So we had plenty of other cards to play to try to block the Magnagoth. Not a lot of ways to try to block Protector. Very uphill battle there regardless. Definitely could have played it out differently. Could have sequenced things out a little quicker. 2-for-1 herself lost some value there to try desperately to stop as much damage as we could, but pretty far behind on the defensive there. And then the thing that we couldn't change, because it's our deck and not our plays, would be, had we hit a red source, we would have just shot Magnagoth early and taken way less damage throughout that game. And not have to 2-for-1 ourselves to do so. Sad way to end it there. Guess bite down, take up the shield was the way to go. I would have gained a lot of life doing that too. If I had done it on blocks against Magnagoth, it would really slow opponent down. Yeah, I guess the best line to victory there was block, take up the shield, bite down. I am 2-for-1ing myself, but I'm gaining a ton of life, so I'm kind of spending one of those cards to gain a ton. We would have made a 3-4 missionary, then bit the Magnagoth Sentry to gain 3, and then it's also blocking the Magnagoth Sentry, so gain another 3. Would have gained 6 life, gotten the Magnagoth off the board. Yeah, that is a significant enough amount of life there that could have definitely changed the course of that game, even 2-for-1 myself to do it. That was the big misplay of the day. Other than that, though, I think this deck was really solid. I do think this is probably the best our sealed pool can offer, the Naya colors. Just green and white have some really powerful, efficient creatures. As we've seen, Knight of Dawn's Light, Phyrexian Missionary were always great. Faithbonder even put in some work there in some late games, being able to attack in and force my opponent to trade off with this thing before they get to trade off with my more important creatures like Yavimaya Sojourner and Elfhame Worm. Squee was whatever. I don't know if I should have been splashing Squee. Squashing Splee. That's a different way to say it, I guess. Llanowar Green Widow was phenomenal. The Elfhame Worms, the Sojourners, the Phalanxes were all great. Acolyte was a role player. It was not phenomenal, but it was important in a few games just to have a flying body. Yeah, very happy with pretty much everything in the whole deck, and very happy with the deck I chose to go with today overall. One last look through the sealed pool, just skim through here. Could have had an interesting Braids deck, but I think this Naya deck was pretty sweet. And that's just about it for other options. Alright, well, turned a 0-2 run into a 5-3 run. Didn't quite make it to breaking even, unfortunately, but still solid win rate here. Solid run after a pretty sketchy start, so I will absolutely take it. Get our 1600 gems in our 3 packs and we'll run away with it. But that is going to end today's video. As always, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to let the YouTube algorithm know to send some more of these videos to you in your recommended feeds. Other than that, just stick around on the channel. Plenty more Dominaria United to come in the next few weeks. We've got the qualifier weekend event that I am qualified for. That is going to be Dominaria United Sealed, a very competitive Dominaria United Sealed event, and then the Arena Open at the end of the month, also Dominaria United competitive sealed. So spicy stuff on the horizon. Stay tuned for all that. But with that out of the way, as always, I'd just like to thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.